Okay, Commissioners, it looks like all the attendees have entered the webinar, so you're free to start your meeting.
Regular meeting of the Civil Service Commission for May 6, 2026 will now come to order. Welcome in-person and online attendees. If you want to provide oral comments on any of the agenda items, please be sure you follow the instructions on the first page of the agenda. If you're attending this meeting in person and you would like to pull an item for a discussion, when asked, please stand and identify yourself by name or number, and we will return to your item after the consent agenda is approved. Attendees joining this meeting using the Zoom application will alert Commission staff of your intention to speak about an agenda item by using the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. Please include your name, telephone number, or other identifying feature you selected when logging in, and the agenda item you want to speak about. Attendees who dialed into today's meeting, please press *9 on your telephone to raise your hand to alert Commission staff of your intention to speak about an agenda item. When called upon to speak, please unmute yourself by using *6 on your telephone. Will the Commission Secretary please take roll call?
Commissioner Bassett.
Present.
Commissioner Coleman.
Present.
Commissioner McGovern.
Present.
Commissioner Montenegro.
Present.
Commissioner Rodriguez-Kennedy.
May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of March 4th, 2026?
Make a motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Will the Commission Secretary please record Commissioner votes?
Commissioner Bassett.
Aye.
Commissioner Coleman.
Aye.
Commissioner McGovern.
Aye.
Commissioner Montenegro.
Aye.
The item passed unanimously. Members of the public may address any matter relating to the Civil Service Commission other than the items that are on the agenda. The total amount of time allowed for public comment will be limited to not more than 2 minutes unless the Commission President, me, agrees to extend that time. Do any of the attendees want to make a public comment about any matter relating to the Civil Service Commission, but not on today's agenda? Yes. Okay.
Is your item on the agenda? Oh, okay. Then, yeah, we'll give you an opportunity to speak after we give the people that are online.
Okay. If you join the meeting using Zoom, please use the Q&A function on the bottom portion of the screen to inform Commission staff. If you dialed into today's meeting, you may press *9 on your telephone to raise your hand to alert Commission staff. When called upon to speak, please unmute yourself using *6 on your telephone. We will need to wait a minute in the event somebody wants to make a comment and is attempting to alert staff now. Will the executive officer please start a timer? What is this?
Yes. Commissioners, 1 minute has passed. We have one person who's attending in person that would like to make a public comment. Nobody online wants to make a public comment. You may come up here and sit at that table there and make your public comment. You'll have 2 minutes.
My name is Paloma Serna. I am the mother of Elisa Serna, who died November 11, 2019 at the Las Colinas jail. She died of medical neglect by nurse, a nurse that no longer works for the county, Dana Lee Pasquale, but the deputies who are still working at Las Colinas Lucas Lacey Lovisa, and also Deputy Tony Hall Bennett, who's up in Vista, in which she is also being investigated or involved in a second in custody death recent as in this year. I'm also with Saving Lives in Custody California and North County Equity Justice Coalition. I'm here to attend and know more about this department, something that I just found out about last year. I attend the CLERB meetings monthly since my daughter had passed, and where I am here to not only hold those who accountable, not only for my daughter's death, but also the other in custody deaths. You know, last year we had 10 in custody deaths, and it's a shame that we still have deputies who are still working in these facilities. You know, out of our lawsuit that we had in 2024, you know, there was 7 things that the sheriff department had to do, you know, with their employees, the medical staff, and with the deputies. They needed to take classes of compassion training and some others, like even simple taking vitals, in which nurses are supposed to be doing already. But, you know, we have to force their hands. And I hope that this committee here, or, you know, commissioners, you know, would be able to hold employees accountable and not let them to continue to work, because people are still dying. You know, these are preventable deaths. Our loved ones are still innocent. You know, they haven't, my daughter was only in custody for 5 days. She was never convicted of a crime. And so it's not right that we have to, after years and years, you know, attending not only CLER, but now also to this meeting, wanting people to be held accountable. And it's not right that these people are still working. You know, they still have their position overseeing, you know, our loved ones. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, we have one other member of the public that wants to make a public comment. I will unmute him. Mr. Youssef, I believe you want to make a public comment? Youssef Miller?
Yes, I want to thank the commission for allowing me to speak. My name is Youssef Miller with the Saving Lives in Custody California and the North County Equity and Justice Coalition. And like Ms. Paloma Serna and all the other families that we support, we plan to be more visible and more participatory in this commission. It is something that we think is very, very useful, and the community needs to know more about it. So accountability and transparency is the name of the day, and we thank you for being there and doing the work of evaluating the complaints and the submissions of the staff and civic services that come from your office. Like I said before, accountability is what we're here for and what we're watching for, and we plan to be here more in the future. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Commissioners, that concludes the public comment portion.
Well, thank you for your comments. We're moving on to agenda item discussion. Do any of the attendees want to pull an agenda item for discussion? If you're attending this meeting in person and you would like to pull an agenda item for discussion, please stand and identify yourself by name or number, and we will return to your item after the consent agenda is approved. If you are speaking for an appellant or a complainant, please use their assigned number. If you join the meeting using Zoom, please use the Q&A function on the bottom portion of the screen to inform commission staff of the agenda item you wish to speak about. If you dialed into today's meeting, you may press *9 on your telephone to raise your hand to alert commission staff. When called upon to speak, please unmute yourself using *6. We will need to wait a minute in the event somebody is trying to pull an agenda item and is attempting to alert staff now. Will the executive officer please set a timer?
Yes. While we're waiting on the timer, is anybody in person that wants to pull an item for discussion? And remember, you have the option of not using your name, so you can identify yourself with the number that we have assigned you on the agenda. Item 9, okay. Okay. How much time do you think you will need? How much time do you need to present the information that you'll be presenting for the commission to consider? That very far exceeds the amount of time that we typically give people to speak, about 5 minutes on each agenda item. Oh, yeah, we're not talking about in total. We're just talking about your portion of how much time you'll need to present your information.
So I read the agenda items, and you have two appraisals, right? So we normally would allow you 5 minutes for both. We can give you 10 per agenda item, with that including a break in between. So is that acceptable? Pardon me? 20 minutes with a break, including the break.
It could be extended depending on how much questioning there is from the commissioners. And then also, the department will be presenting some information, I assume. So how about we'll start off with 10 minutes and then see how that takes us.
And I just want to encourage you not to repeat any information that you've already repeated. So if it's the same from one case to the next case, if you can just give new information, different information, that would be helpful. Okay, there's only 1 hour allotted for this entire meeting, so we have to be mindful of other people's needs too. Thank you.
Would somebody else like to pull an item for discussion? Item 10, okay. And we have, so we've received requests from in-person attendees to pull items 9 and 10. Oh, okay, yes. Are you here from the department? And we have a representative from the department for item number 9, correct? Yes, okay, thank you. She'll give her name when she sits and speaks. I think just one. But the department can clarify, is there more than one person that'll be speaking on that item? Okay. No, there's nothing that I'm aware of that bars her from participating in today's meeting on behalf of her department. Well, the appeal officer doesn't have anything to do with our process here. No, I don't know if she is or not. I'm not representing the department. The department can answer that question. When did time come? Yeah. Okay, so we have items number 9 and 10 pulled.
And forgive me, because I have not experienced this before. I have to consult with my executive officer on protocol, et cetera. Just to be clear.
Yeah.
Okay, we're ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, we're now on the formation of our consent agenda. Will the commission secretary announce the items forming the consent agenda?
Commissioners, agenda item number 8 is automatically pulled for discussion, as well as agenda item 9 and agenda item 10 are pulled for discussion. So the formation of our consent calendar will be items 1 through 7 and 11 through 14.
May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Moved.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Wonderful. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, will the commission secretary please record commissioner votes?
Commissioner Bassett,
Aye.
Commissioner Coleman,
Aye.
Commissioner McGovern.
Aye.
Commissioner Montenegro.
Aye.
The result was unanimous. Thank you. We'll now move on to our discussion items. Agenda item 8. It's not been pulled.
Yeah, it is.
It is pulled. Okay. which is Commissioner McGovern's report on a discipline hearing. Do any of the attendees want to speak about this agenda item? We already identified that. Okay, do it again. We must do this again. Do any of the attendees wish to speak about agenda item 8? No? Okay. If so, and you join the meeting using Zoom, please use the Q&A function on the bottom portion of the screen to alert Commission staff. If you dialed in, you may press *9 to raise your hand to alert Commission staff. We need to wait a minute to make sure no one's trying to reach us.
I started a timer. Commissioners, 1 minute has passed. We've received no request to speak about this agenda item.
Thank you. Agenda item 8, which is Commissioner McGovern's report. Whoops. Down here. Oh, right. Okay. Commissioner McGovern will now read his report and make a motion.
Thank you. 2025-029P, or employee, appealed a final order of removal and charges removing her from the position of Deputy Probation Officer in the Probation Department or Department. It was presented to the Civil Service Commission. The commission appointed me, Commissioner Sam McGovern, to hear the appeal and submit findings, conclusions, and recommendations to the Civil Service Commission. Thereafter, a hearing was held on April 7th, 2026. The causes of discipline were conduct unbecoming, failure of good behavior, and acts incompatible with and/or inimical to the public service. The employee was working as shift leader during the PM shift in Unit Echo at the East Mesa Juvenile Detention Facility or facility on September 24th, 2024. Deputy Probation Officers or DPOs 1, 2, 3, and 4, and Supervising Probation Officer or SPO 1 were present in or close to the day room of Unit Echo, engaged in providing dinner to the juveniles in that unit. One of the youths in the Unit Echo, or youth, did not initially leave his room for dinner, but after the employee spoke with him, he joined others in the day room. After obtaining his meal, he sat down at a table with 3 other youths. Shortly thereafter, DPO 1 walked to his table and sought his signature on a voluntary separation form, also known as VSF or form. The VSF is used when a youth decides not to participate in any programming, including free time recreation, typically by staying in their room. Youth did not join others during free recreation time earlier in the day, and DPO 1 was asking that he acknowledge his voluntary separation from that activity earlier in the day. At the time that DPO 1 asked for his signature, Youth was starting his dinner, which included either a chili dog or sloppy joes. In either event, where the food was, it included chili with the food. Youth was uncooperative and proceeded to first act like he was signing the form, then wiped chili sauce from his hand onto the form, wiped his face with the form, and then set the soiled form on the corner of his table. DPO 1 left to obtain a signature on a different form from another youth, then returned, picked up the form, and walked behind the counter to the staff desk, setting both forms down. Prior to DPO 1's retrieval of the form, the employee was stationed behind the counter of the staff desk with her back to the day room floor. She moved away from behind the desk and counter to address some other matter when DPO 1 collected the form from Youth and walked behind the counter. Youth then stood up and walked about in the day room. DPO 1 then made a call, and when the employee returned to the day room, to the front of the staff desk counter. She handed the phone to the employee. After a brief conversation on the phone, during which DPO1 showed the soiled form to the employee looked around for Youth, finished her telephone call, and spoke with DPO1, who explained what Youth had done to the form. The employee then located Youth, who was walking about the day room, still holding the remainder of his dinner, and gave him the command to take it up, or in other words, to go to his room. Youth walked back towards his table and stopped to talk with the employee, then disregarded the employee's command to take it up by sitting back down in his chair at the table with his back to the employee. After Youth returned to his table and sat down, he continued to ignore commands to go to his room for approximately 10 seconds. Approximately 8 seconds after he turned to face the employee, DPO1 returned to join the employee in their combined efforts to gain his compliance and return to his room. This discussion continued for approximately 12 seconds when Youth abruptly turns his back on the employee and DPO1, continuing to ignore their commands. He then turns around in his chair to speak with the employee, arguing with the employee and continuing to resist returning to his room, telling her, "I'm not taking shit up," and some other statements of refusal. Apologies, the fly is over here. Approximately 7 seconds later, the employee then calls out a command for all the youths to take it up, to return to their rooms. DPO1 then moves away from the table to the youth's room and opens it up for him to enter. Youth remains seated, and 10 seconds later, the employee observes Youth sliding some of his food, or the object, to another youth to hold for him. The employee, who was positioned behind Youth with a partially obscured viewpoint of what was taking place immediately in front of the youth's body, observes the exchange and takes 4 steps towards Youth, with the last step being right next to him in his chair. While she was stepping towards Youth, he grabs the object that he had just slipped to the other youth, and the employee asks for the object from him. Youth then slips the object into his waistband, and the employee calls cover to the youth and grabs Youth by his right shoulder and then shortly after by his hair. DPO2 arrives as the employee's cover officer and reaches toward Youth's torso as he turns. The employee pulls him out of his chair by his hair. The employee and DPO2 then attempt to gain control of Youth and take him to the ground. During their struggle with Youth, the employee's left hand and arm became braced around Youth's torso underneath his arm, with his hands gripping the employee's left hand, which the employee confirmed is her dominant hand. Youth held onto her arm with his left arm held tightly against his body and grasped the employee's left hand tightly during the struggle. The employee repeatedly gave verbal commands to Youth to let go of her hand and attempted to pull it free, without immediate success. She also kept other responding officers aware of her inability to release Youth, even when responding officers tried to relieve her during the struggle. Pardon me. During the struggle, DPO1 also gave the cover command to those youths remaining in the day room before rushing in to assist in the struggle with Youth. Youth was actively resisting the employee and the other officers from the initial contact while seated and throughout the struggle until he was finally controlled and handcuffed, a period of approximately 2 minutes and 10 seconds. During this time, the employee delivered a total of 12 closed fist strikes to the youth's head, neck, and shoulder, and 10 knee strikes to the youth's back and torso in an effort to gain control and to get Youth to release her left arm and hand. No strikes were delivered after the employee was able to free herself from Youth's grip. Following the incident, the employee was required to prepare an incident report. Because of her injuries to her left arm and hand, and because of DPO2's injuries to the side of her face, the two of them were told to first go to Concentra Urgent Care for treatment. While they were gone, CCTV video recordings showing the activity in Unit Echo, including the incident involving Youth, were accessed and recorded for review by those officers involved. Both the employee and DPO2 initially watched the CCTV video recordings upon their return from urgent care. The CCTV recordings were only allowed to be watched in the watch commander's office. The employee initiated the preparation of an incident report late in her shift on September 4th. To provide a complete report, she reviewed the CCTV video recordings at least one more time. During one of these viewings, the employee used her personal mobile phone to record what she was viewing. On or about September 5th, 2024, employee and DPO2 were communicating by text using their personal mobile phones. Because she was also involved in the incident, DPO2 was required to supplement the initial report to be written by the employee with an addendum. At some point, DPO2 was informed that the employee had a copy of the CCTV video recording on her personal phone, and she asked the employee to send the video to her. The employee complied, but cautioned DPO2 with the admonition, "Do not tell anyone we have it." Our conclusions. Cause 1. The evidence supports a violation of Civil Service Rule 7.2M regarding conduct unbecoming in that on September 4th, 2024, while on duty during the PM shift in the day room at Unit Echo of the East Mesa Juvenile Detention Facility, the employee initiated a struggle with youth by closing the gap to the seated youth, making contact with her hand on his shoulder, then back, grabbed his hair with both hands, and used his hair as part of the officer's efforts to pull youth to the floor in an effort to gain compliance with her commands and overcome his resistance. The evidence further supports that when in her struggle with the youth, the employee delivered a total of 12 closed fist strikes to youth's head, neck, and shoulder, and a total of 10 knee strikes to youth's back, ribs, and other points on his torso in efforts to gain control of the struggle and free his grasp of her left arm and hand. However, the closed fist strikes were all delivered by the employee's non-dominant hand, with the last 7 of the 12 closed fist strikes occurring while youth was pinning employee's left arm and grasping her left hand. During this time, youth called for the employee to, quote, hit him harder. The employee did not deliver any force after she was freed from the youth's grip. The use of force was determined to be unreasonable by the department, but none of the department's witnesses testifying at the hearing had personally interviewed the employee. The opinion of the only individual involved in the investigation who did personally interview the employee was introduced only through a report, which denies this hearing officer a sufficient opportunity to fully understand how that individual arrived at his opinion. Other than testimony from DPO2, the department's testifying witnesses arrived at their opinions through review of the video footage and/or reports by other personnel. While video provides important evidence, it is only one perspective. The employee and other personnel who worked with the employee and testified at the hearing were all aware of youth's history while at the facility, how he had assaulted and intimidated other youths and officers, and how it was known that he had even been found in possession of sharpened objects in the facility that could have been used as weapons. The department charged the employee with utilizing inappropriate/excessive force, and while the department met its burden to show that the force was used in an inappropriate manner at times, i.e. grabbing youth's hair and or closing the gap between herself and youth, and in a way that was not consistent with training, the department did not meet its burden to satisfactorily prove that the entirety of her use of force was objectively unreasonable in light of the facts and circumstances at the time the force was used by the employee. The employee's evidence demonstrated that youth was known to the personnel who worked with him to be strong, unpredictable, and potentially dangerous. The employee, with knowledge that youth had previously obtained objects in the facility that could be used as weapons, observing him passing items at a table and then concealing an object in his pants. While review of the video footage shows that it was most likely food, the employee was not in a position to be able to determine what had been concealed in his pants. The employee made a decision to take quick action and introduce a level of force by pushing youth towards the cover position. The decision ultimately led to a bad situation where multiple personnel were necessary to overcome youth's resistance. Using hindsight, the department proved that parts of the overall incident were conducted contrary to policy, but this hearing officer cannot find that it was unreasonable for the employee, with knowledge that she had at the time, to decide it was necessary to take immediate action to prevent youth from harming others in the vicinity. Thus, the employee is guilty of conduct unbecoming of an officer or employee of the county under Civil Service Rule 7.2M for using force in a manner not prescribed by policy and/or training, but notably doing so in what must be acknowledged as a situation a reasonable officer in the employee's position would find to be dangerous and warranting action. The second half of this cause of action relates to the employee's admitted violation of policy 801.5.6C when she used her own personal cell phone to record the CCTV footage while in the watch commander's office, and then sent it by text message to DPO2 1 or 2 days following the incident. Cause 2. The evidence supports a violation of Civil Service Rule 7.2R regarding failure of good behavior, and that the same actions described in Cause 1 above support a violation of Rule 7.2R. Juveniles under the control and custody of the department must be treated with greater care, respect, and patience, while at the same time demonstrating the need to follow commands. By closing the gap and not being patient by awaiting the clearance of the room by other youths, the employee created a situation of danger of injury to youth, other youths in the day room, herself, and fellow officers. Once the struggle started, however, clearly youth responds violently and aggressively against the employee, DPOs 1, 2, and 3, as well as those other officers responding to the incident. And the employee's strikes and kicks during their effort to control youth were justified under the circumstances. Cause 3. The evidence does not support a violation of Civil Service Rule 7.2S regarding acts incompatible with and/or inimical to the public service as it pertains to the physical altercation that occurred here. While the department demonstrated that the results of employees' decision to engage youth ran afoul of policy and training in certain ways, this hearing officer finds that a reasonable officer could have come to the same decision in using force under the facts and circumstances existing at that time, i.e., when assaulting the employee through pinning her arm and tightly grasping her hand to the point of causing pain. Further, this hearing officer cannot find that it is inappropriate for an officer to use force to free him or herself from the grip of an assailant. As such, the employee's actions during the altercation are not incompatible with and/or inimical to the public service. However, the employee's surreptitious recording of the CCTV footage on her personal cell phone, then sharing same with DPO2, was in violation with policies that are intended to ensure that confidential juvenile records are not susceptible to unlawful release, whether intentional or unintentional. The department sufficiently demonstrated the gravity of the employee's actions here. While there was no evidence that the recording was circulated to anyone who would not have otherwise been able to view the video on a department device, such actions are inimical to the public service. As to level of discipline, although the findings of the department are generally sustained in most of the charges brought by the department against the employee, there are mitigating factors that must be considered. Primarily with respect to the confrontation with youth, some actions surrounding the struggle with youth are found to be in violation of policies, but once the struggle began, it is difficult to consider the final 7 closed fist strikes and the final 8 knee kicks as unreasonable under the circumstances. Youth's resistance, swinging of his own fists, kicking, refusing to cover, as well as pinning the employee's arm and hand tightly in what can be considered more aggressive than defensive on the part of youth, justify the amount of force used during the struggle. The fact that these strikes occurred while the employee was unable to free herself from the grip of the juvenile must be considered. With respect to the inappropriate sharing of the CCTV video, the employee admitted that it was inappropriate, not only to record it in the first place, but to share it with DPO2. Her excuse about recording it, that she needed to review the recording more than simply the first 2 times in the watch commander's office to promptly and efficiently prepare an accurate incident report. This explanation does not mitigate her failure of good behavior, and the employee knew that taking that action was in violation of departmental policy. The violation is aggravated by her knowledge that her conduct was in violation of policies when texting it to DPO2 with the admonition, "Do not tell anyone we have it." Taking all mitigating and aggravating factors into consideration, this hearing officer believes that termination is too harsh of a punishment. The employee, however, must be disciplined such that future violations of department policies do not happen, and so that she understands that each and every policy is important in the operations of the department. This hearing officer believes a 90 calendar day suspension, the longest suspension allowable by the civil service rules, is appropriate. Based on the findings and conclusions set forth above, I hereby recommend the following decision. 1, that the final order of removal and charges be modified to a 90 calendar day suspension. 2, that the employee be awarded back pay, benefits, and interest from the date of removal to the date of this decision, minus wages attributable to the 90 calendar day suspension, and minus any wages, benefits, or other compensation employee received from other employment, unemployment benefits, or other assistance programs. And 3, that the proposed decision shall become effective upon the date of approval by the Civil Service Commission, and I so move.
Is there a second?
Madam Chair, I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, hearing none, will the secretary please record commissioner votes?
Commissioner Bassett,
Aye.
Commissioner Coleman,
Aye.
Commissioner McGovern,
Aye.
Commissioner Montenegro,
Aye.
The decision is unanimous. Now we'll move to agenda item 9 regarding a request to seal a performance appraisal. Recommendation is to deny the request. As a reminder, please refer to the employee as employee or the case number we assigned 2026-015. We will give the employee an opportunity to speak, then we will allow the department's representative to respond. You will have up to 5 minutes each with the modifications we've already agreed to, 20 minutes total for you. We'll see how that goes. Employee, you may now come sit over here.
Yeah, and
Which place?
either place. And actually, the department representative can come up to one of these tables. You both have a table with a microphone. The employee will make her presentation first. You should not use your name. I don't think you could have any problem with using their names, but if you want to use appeal officer, that would be fine.
And if you would, please just let me know when you need a break. If you need a break, just let me know. Thank you.
You'll need to speak into the microphone, so please bring the microphone to you and speak directly into it.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I am item 9, 2026-015 staff nurse. I began my employment with the County of San Diego at the Edgemore facility on or about September 20, 2024. After making protected complaints regarding fraud, theft, and unlawful practices, I began experiencing retaliation and harassment for acting as a whistleblower to protect my patients and the public. False accusations were made against me. Multiple meetings were held to discuss my performance, and I faced intimidation about whether I would complete probation along with threats of termination. In addition, human resources, my supervising nurse, human resources, Ms. Stillman, my supervising nurse, Ms. Puyal, and the union urged me to apply for positions outside of Edgemoor if I wished to remain employed with the county, and provided specific job links for me to apply. I was not permitted to complete my Policy Tech and LMS trainings in a timely manner and did not receive all the training and direction for demonstration of competency related to my work as a charge nurse to do my job safely. For the mid-probation period, I was assigned to work primarily as a medication nurse, as if I was a licensed vocational nurse instead of a registered nurse. Despite that, I was evaluated to meet the expectations as a charge nurse for both my mid and final probation periods. My supervising nurse, Ms. Puyal, said that employees that are on probation are not allowed to appeal performance appraisals. My input for my performance appraisals was not considered and omitted, and my county certificates of recognition, along with other positive comments, were not included. I was placed on administrative leave and instructed not to contact any county employees. I was denied access to my work email. I was not given the information I requested, and neither Human Resources, the appeal officer, nor the union assisted me in obtaining it. These events formed the backdrop for the procedural deficiencies that followed in the performance appraisal process. On January 2nd, 2025, Supervising Nurse Joeta Perez from the evening shift sent a facility-wide email recognizing me for working extra shifts, completing weekly summaries, hanging tube fittings, and dedication to residents and coworkers, assisting in staffing, helping relieve stress, and helping keep the morale high on the PM shift. By then, I had been working double shifts. A county certificate of certificate of appreciation for the third quarter of 2024. Let me remind you, I started working there at the end of September 2024. Was also issued for providing a positive customer experience, along with 2 nominations, noting that I was always willing to learn and that I was liked by many patients and staff already. In January 2025, another county certificate of recognition and appreciation was also issued for providing a positive customer experience. None of this positive information was incorporated in my performance appraisals, despite me asking my supervising nurse, Ms. Puyal, to do so, and to consider that above standard. A few employees told me they had sent emails with positive comments about my performance. That was not added either. After reviewing the entire Policy Tech transcript, 73 pages, I completed only 38 trainings out of the 845 that I was supposed to complete as a charge nurse. Despite asking my supervising nurse, Ms. Puyal, HR, and the union to allow me to complete those trainings. Instead, they use that time for me to apply for other jobs to push me out of Edgemore. These omissions were inconsistent with the requirements of DHR policy 1003 and Rule 5, Section 5.1.2, which required the employee input and pertinent performance information be properly considered. The supervising nurse and the appeal officer did not fulfill those obligations. On February 23rd, 2026, I sent a formal request to the appeal officer and the union representative, asking the commission and the union to investigate potential violations of Civil Service Rule 5 and the HR Policy 1003 regarding my performance review and the appeal process. I attached the positive evidence I have found at home, including documents given to me and signed by my supervising nurse, Ms. Puyal, which she denied in her statement about me receiving them. She stated that she did not recall. The appeal officer replied on February 27, 2026, stating the appeal process was final and directed me to contact SEIU 221. The union rep, Casey Shirk, which has been involved in this, said that she could not assist with the sealing of the performance appraisals. She just sent me a link for me to do it myself. She did not also was present during the PR appeal meetings, which were 2. On March 28th, while serving as a charge nurse, after my supervising nurse, Ms. Puyal, requested for me to have a meeting with the union, another supervising nurse, and HR, Ms. Tillman. They were all present, and the union requested, and me as well, to have coverage during the meeting. I later on have a second meeting. There was a medication error when I was not in the unit because of attending one of these meetings, and I was blamed for the medication error. I was not allowed to appeal the confirmation of conference issued on April 22, 2025, where these medication errors and other things that all licensed nurses and even my supervising nurse, Ms. Puyal, do more often, and even delegates to certified nursing assistants to do treatments outside of their scope of practice. She did not allow me to appeal that. She said that HR had made a final determination.
Ma'am,
And that as
your 10 minutes has concluded. Are you very close to wrapping it up?
yes,
How much?
5 minutes.
We'll meet in the middle. 3. See if you can talk.
3 minutes, if you can.
Oh, I thought I was supposed to speak slower. Thank you.
We still have one more performance appraisal, right? This is just the first one, or is this both of them?
I think you're speaking about both of them right now,
I
right?
tried to combine both.
Okay.
In that case, if you want to keep going for 5 minutes, and then we'll stop without a break.
Mhm. Thank you. My supervising nurse, Ms. Puyal, conducted the final appraisal discussion requiring my attendance, even though I had a workers' compensation visit that day and fell ill. I was not permitted to prepare for the meeting or to leave the facility. On February 2nd, 2026, the director approved the appeals officer's report without modification. These steps did not satisfy Rule 5, Section 5.16, which requires the appointment of an unbiased factual investigator who must meet with the parties, ensure supporting documentation is provided within 5 days, review all pertinent information, and prepare findings based on a thorough and impartial examination. The union remained silent throughout this period and offered no representation or support. My request to seal performance appraisals, which I filed with this commission on February 26, 2025, is requesting sealing both the mid-probation and final probation appraisals. I detail the 3 precise procedural flaws that occur: failure to identify, obtain, and consider pertinent positive information, the appeals officer's failure to act as an unbiased factual investigator, and withholding or failure to provide necessary paperwork and documentation because I was on administrative leave and I was denied access to my work email. When I submitted my request to seal performance appraisals, I mentioned timelines as an issue. I think related to Rule 5, Section 5.1.5, which doesn't contain any exception to make a pause in the process. I followed up with the appeal officer a few times, me thinking we will continue to discuss her findings. She never contacted me. And I believe also her timeline was not followed regarding Rule 5, Section 5.16, requiring issuance within 5 days when the appointing authority makes no changes. This delay is an additional departure from the required process. The final appeal decision was delivered to me on February 3rd, 2026. These shortcomings have left inaccurate appraisals in my personal file, approved by the same director without modification, that directly contributed to my final order of removal from my class and position of staff nurse effective April 28, 2026. Also issued by the same director without modification, contrary to the stated purpose of Rule 5, Section 5.1.1. Item number 9 does not address these procedural matters. Rule 5, Section 5.17 grants this commission and this commission alone the authority to investigate such deficiencies and order the sealing of appraisals that were not completed in accordance with county rules. I therefore ask you to seal both appraisals today so that fair and accurate evaluations may be prepared in full compliance with all applicable procedures. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Now we'll hear from the department.
Hi there. Can you hear me? Okay, hi. Members of the commission, my name is Constance Tillman, and I'm the Senior Departmental Human Resources Officer for the Health and Human Services Edgemoor Hospital. The department's review found no procedural errors in the employee's performance appraisal process. The employee's concerns pertain solely to the content of the appraisal, which is not subject to review under Civil Service Rule 5.1.7. While there is a brief harmless delay in returning the final appraisal, no violations occurred, and the department respectfully recommends the commission deny the request to seal the appraisals. Thank you.
Yes, do any of the commissioners have any questions?
Question, if I may, Madam Chair. I have a question of HR. What is the process? I'm sorry. What is the process, or is there a process where an employee has an opportunity to review an appraisal, and maybe they disagree with an item or two? Can they, well, I'll ask you the question.
The department has an opportunity to meet with the employee. They provide them they call it a PR ahead of time, ahead of the date that it's reviewing, ask the employee to review it. And if they have any questions or items that they want to address, they can meet to discuss, modify. And if everyone's in agreement, then they sign off on it once they're done reviewing.
Can the employee, if for some reason you don't come to an agreement in terms of what was indicated on the appraisal, do they have an opportunity to do a rebuttal?
That is the appeal process.
Okay. So
Yes.
Okay. So they
Yes.
have a limited rebuttal, 1-2 page rebuttal, and then that stays with the appraisal for the life of the appraisal?
Well, what happens is they'll sign the appraisal requesting to appeal, and then an unbiased appeal officer is assigned to the employee, and then they meet to discuss what issues need to be addressed or changed, and then that appeals officer will weigh the options, talk to the supervisor, review the materials, and then make a decision, and that goes to the appointing authority who has the ultimate decision. So there's several steps in between. And once that decision's made, that goes in the file.
Thank you.
Was the employee in this case given the performance review to review prior to the meeting with the supervisor? And then did the supervisor and the employee meet and discuss the differences of opinion?
I believe so, yes. They did meet. I don't know what was discussed during the meeting, but they did meet. And then the employee was given, now for the first PR, which we're talking 3 months, this is the mid PR, we did not receive any information in HR that the employee requested to appeal that. So that went through the process. It was routed and saved in her file. So there was no appeal for the first 3 months.
And did she sign that one?
Correct, she did. For the second PR, which is the final PR, she received the information. Before even receiving the PR, she requested to appeal it. And we gave her that information. We told her where to sign. She was given that opportunity. She signed it, and then was given 3 appeal officers to select from, and she picked one to start that process. All of these PRs, we're talking 2, were written with meets expectation. There were no issues written in those PRs that were derogatory or inflammatory. They were all very well written. There were no issues.
Okay. And did you meet with the appeal officer? You picked one of the 3? Is that correct?
They actually assigned somebody, but I saw in the rules that I could choose somebody.
Right.
So I chose somebody, but I would like to just clarify some of her false statements. So this is the first time that I email my supervising nurse specifying what I would like to have as my input for my for my mid-performance appraisal.
For the 3-month performance appraisal.
Right. And she told me that she couldn't and I couldn't because I was on probation. So none of this was included, and it was very relevant because I was basically working as a licensed vocational nurse, doing the work of a medication nurse, not as a charge nurse, but she was doing this performance appraisal and goals as if I worked as a charge nurse. So that was not fair, but she said I could not appeal it. I also would like to note, and I have a screenshot, she made me do it during my lunch break. For this, she made me do my review of my performance appraisal during my lunch break. And I have a screenshot of that message. She tried to do the same thing with the second performance appraisal. And I told her that that was unlawful because my lunch break should be uninterrupted. And that was a violation of labor laws. She also sent me my performance appraisal when she knew I was going to be on vacation. When I returned, I find it in my emails, and she wouldn't make time for us to have a meeting. She specified in one of her emails that I had to say to do overtime to do it, and she will only give me 15 minutes. I told her that it will take more because of all the things that she had not considered. Like, here's her message.
Can I ask a question? Sorry. So since there was nothing written negative, what's the point of sealing a performance review if nothing negative was written?
Oh, it's included. I don't know why she's saying it's not. They sent me an email with 6 to 8 attachments.
It's right here.
Miss Milton, and that's another discrepancy that I noticed, that when I met with my supervising nurse, she didn't show me these documents. I go on a medical leave, and because of them not taking my input, I request to appeal it because the director of nursing told me that I could do that. So I let her know. I let Ms. Tillman know. And when I returned from my medical leave, I was not allowed to talk to any of the 6 new documents that were attached.
Again, that's not my question. My question is, if there's nothing negative written about you and you have a standard performance review, why would you care about sealing it? That's my question.
So 2 things. My certificates of appreciation, which are here if you would like to take a view, and the other supervisor's email, which is the only thing that I have access to because of being placed on admin leave and not having access to my work email. I think it's relevant for a new employee to receive these recognitions. And
you were hoping they would be included in the performance review?
Yes, because
So you want to seal it because they weren't included?
I would like the ones that were done to be sealed and new ones to be
Oh, I see.
new
evaluation.
right, that where they reflect my
Can we? Okay.
my actual work at the facility. And I mean, I show my supervising nurse my abnormal vital signs. She made me stay there, even though I told her I needed to seek medical help. I have a screenshot. And also, do you have the documents that you actually provided those when I was on admin leave that Miss Milton sent to me? Here, I found it. So all these documents that they added as attachments after I requested an appeal.
Those documents are the supervisor notes that go with the performance appraisal. Whenever an employee appeals, we ask the supervisor to redact any sensitive information and provide the appeals officer and the employee what criteria that they use to create the ratings. It's not a document that goes in the performance review. It's their working notes. That's how they came up with the ratings. So that's what that was. It wasn't in the official performance appraisal.
So anyone, a future employer or department, if she's applying elsewhere, requesting a copy of performance appraisals would never see those notes. So those are already hidden.
This information was used by you and the rest of the
It was
people
given to you
involved.
as part of the
My,
appeal.
That was
yeah,
transparency. They were giving you their documentation of why they made the decision they made. But they gave you a standard review, which in our experience is rarely asked to be sealed because it's not negative. Most people want to seal a performance review.
negative. The attachments that they later.
Nobody will see that but you. No one's going to see that but you.
But they're not accurate. They are
Not a part of your
medication.
We don't have the power to change history. If that's how they perceived you and they completed the performance review, as long as their review of you is not negative, harmful to you, there's nothing in your review that is harmful to you. If you applied for another position, there's nothing that would prevent a future employer from seeing that you are an acceptable standard employee. So there is nothing that has done harm to you. They may believe things differently than you do, see things differently than you do. That happens every day in life. Two people share the same experience and have completely different experiences of it. And their view of your performance is different than yours, but they didn't apparently use any of that negativity in reviewing you. They gave you a standard review.
However, in the notes that they add, they make reference to it. That
Make reference to what?
of me having ongoing goals. It's
So we're really getting into the content of the performance appraisal, and what's before the commission are your allegations that there were procedural flaws in how the appraisal was created and given to you. So this isn't an extension of the appeal process here.
right. I understand that, but this just shows you that the appeal officer was unbiased, and that's why I'm requesting a new.
Unbiased.
I mean, bias.
Bias.
Yes, sorry. It's a lot. It's just.
So I understand your primary concerns are that you wanted your commendations to be included in your performance review. That's all you asked for a minute ago, is all you want is to have that included, those certificates or whatever you receive. It's not our job to change your performance review. Our job is to decide whether to grant your appeal to seal it or not. It doesn't mean that they are obligated to give you a new performance appraisal. We do not have the power to tell the department how to do their job.
I think I read that.
We
you have
can
the-
order the preparation of a new appraisal, but we don't tell them what to put in the appraisal. We wouldn't say, oh, now you have to include these commendations. It would be up to the department to prepare the appraisal as they see fit.
Right. I just want them to be fair and impartial and just consider all the documentation.
Go ahead.
Can I just ask one
Speak
very,
louder.
can I ask one very simple question? In her permanent file, the performance appraisal, is there anything that would be construed as negative by anyone pulling that file and maybe taking a look at her personnel record in consideration for another job or a promotion?
No.
It was used for my order of removal effective April 28th, 2026. Now I'm now fired because they used that information to reference that I was not competent. I only did 4% of my trainings. I was working as a medication nurse primarily. I was a floater between 5 different units, and I'm blamed for errors made by other licensed nurses when I'm not in the unit because I'm meeting with them.
Was that in the appraisal review, the performance review?
Yes.
It was mentioned, what you just said that you did wrong? Because we just established there was nothing negative in the reports.
According to the information I received, it's considered by my supervising nurse for her to rate me and to add all these comments relevant to me.
I understand,
Not
but you
being-
said something negative was written about you that we used to let you go, but we just established there was nothing negative in the report, so I'm confused.
So there's an order of termination that you have that's separate from the performance reviews. So what you're talking about is the order of termination.
Well,
And
I'm talking about what's written here.
is that the termination
No, this is the performance appraisal
for which period?
for the final probation period.
Okay, the same one that they'd given you a standard
Right.
review?
But they use these documents as a reference saying that I'm not meeting goals.
Doesn't say it in there. Doesn't say it in your performance appraisal.
In your final, or whatever it's called, performance review, it says you have a standard. It does not say you're not meeting goals. But she got something different.
She's referring to the transparency documents that the supervisor provided to the appeals officer, which we provide to her as well to have, which was not included as an attachment to her PR.
But what did she receive when she got a termination notice?
She received a Skelly packet, which has every PR that she ever had, the investigation notes and summaries, her personnel file, basically all of her training records. That was handed to her.
Okay.
But those caused harm because they're stating that I'm not competent and that I was provided all the training needed. And they also use false statements, but that's a different meeting.
I think where it's being a little bit confusing for us is you initially started off, discussing a performance appraisal. And now we've gone into a separate document involving Scully hearings where most employees during that process have an opportunity to get everything that has been in the personnel file, hiring records, et cetera, et cetera. There's two different documents that it appears, at least to me, that you're referring to. And I know the initial request was to seal the performance appraisal. And in that performance appraisal, nobody would have ever seen what you have now. That is correct, is it not?
But it was used.
So here's
in
what
my
I think
Skelly
is happening.
packet.
Can I interrupt you for just a minute? Because I think what you're doing is confusing two different things. There's an appeal of your performance appraisal that you want to seal it or not, and then there's an appeal of your termination. What you're talking about is the evidence used for your termination, not evidence that's in your performance review. They may have used whatever other notes and decisions to terminate you, which is being appealed, I understand. And that's where you can have a discussion about having your point of view heard about why you should not have been terminated. The performance review is black and white. You met expectations. If there's later a reason that they have terminated you, that is something you appeal separately than to seal your performance review. Right now, sealing your performance review does not help you in your case for an appeal of your termination, to be honest,
How so?
because it's sealing the fact that you had 2 good performance reviews. I would want that in my record, that I have had 2 good performance reviews and then I was terminated. You seal that, there's no evidence whatsoever that you had any standard performance. So it's not in your best interest, in my opinion, to seal your performance review.
Thank you for explaining that. Can then they just add my certificate of recognitions?
We can't ask them to do that unless
do
we say that there was something wrong procedurally with their performance review. So we follow rules too. And some supervisors do that, some don't. So we can't tell a supervisor what to include in their performance review. Beyond our scope. We could say, we want you to do another performance review. That is within our scope, but they still might exclude it. So my recommendation is that you bring all of this to your appeal of your termination. That's where you're going to get this possibly admitted into evidence and also considered, because it's not in sealing the performance review. Do you understand the difference between them?
I now understand the difference and the relevance of keeping them and sealing them. Thank you so much for explaining the process.
Madam Chair, I think the matter before us, involved the performance review, and I might suggest that we are at the point where
We could make a decision.
call for the vote.
Yes.
If
Make
that's
a
it,
motion.
I would so move. If it has the
You're moving
rest
to
of the
what?
board to rule on the request to seal
To
the
not
performance.
seal.
Yeah, what is your motion?
What's your motion?
Sealing or not sealing?
Sealing or not sealing?
Well, the request was to seal,
So it's done.
right? And so I would be prepared to rule on that motion. So
Seal it or not seal it?
those- I
Let's
can't
seal it.
Deny?
can't deny until we get the second right, and then we vote on it.
No, no,
No,
no.
no. So the staff's recommendation was to deny the request.
I would motion to deny sealing the performance appraisal.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any more discussion?
Can I just ask one question? So then there's no possibility of these getting sealed and new ones being issued?
No, there's no possibility. If we order that, there's still not a guarantee to you that they will include what you want them to include.
It's okay. I just want a fair process, but because there were some violations in the guidelines that the appeal officer had to follow.
It's technically within the authority of the commission to order that. Based on the discussion here, it sounds like they're not headed in that direction, but I'll leave that up to the commissioners to decide.
My motion stands as
My second stance.
Okay, and any other discussion on the question? Well, we'll take a vote and see where we stand.
Did you recognize?
Commissioner Bassett,
Aye.
Commissioner Coleman,
Aye.
Commissioner McGovern,
Aye.
Commissioner Montenegro,
aye.
So it stands that our decision is not to seal your performance review, and we hope that's actually in your best interest.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you recognize any violations though?
We didn't see any.
The only violation that we recognized was the slight delay of giving you the performance appraisal after the appointing authority reviewed the appeal officer's decision or recommendation, I guess I should say. And that was in the staff report.
Right.
Even with that violation, staff's recommendation was to still deny the request. We did not see that as serious enough that would warrant sealing a performance appraisal and removing the appraisal from your personnel file.
Okay, thank you for explaining that.
You're welcome.
Okay, we're moving on to agenda item 10 regarding a request for a selection process appeal hearing. Staff's recommendation is to deny the request. When we talk about staff, we're talking about our staff. Okay. Just being clear. As a reminder, please refer to the employee as employee, or the case number is 2026-016. We will give the employee an opportunity to speak, and then we will allow department's representative to respond. You will each have 5 minutes.
So either of you can take a seat at the table. Next item. We can send you a copy of the minutes once when they get approved after the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Just speak into the microphone, please.
I'm sorry, how much time am I given for my opening?
You'll be getting 5 minutes.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Mariana Elich, Legal Support Assistant 2 in the District Attorney's Office. I'm here under Rule 10 to appeal the unfair selection process for Administrative Analyst 1. The department's rebuttal states that the travel unit refused to interview me because I, quote, failed probation in a former position as a human services specialist, claiming that this position required similar skills to the travel unit. This is false, and the comparison is exactly backwards. I never failed probation in any permanent classified county position. What the DA is referring to was only a qualifying test I took 6 years ago during HHSA's 90-day in-house training program before I was ever placed in a permanent role. Passing the test was required to get placed in a permanent position as a human service specialist. I can explain how my mother's impending death was a major reason for me failing that test and why it was completely out of character for me, someone who has passed several professional tests, such as a Series 7, 63, 65, Principal Series 22 when I was a financial advisor. I brought my mother's death certificate with me in case we needed, proof and clarification, which we can discuss later. Worse, the DA's rebuttal misrepresents the nature of the 3 months I was in that training program that I failed that has very little correlation to the travel desk. HHSA is heavily dependent on state and federal grants for public assistance program like CalFresh and Medi-Cal and Cash Aid, work that directly aligns with grants unit, not the fiscal budget travel desk. Yet the DA used this inaccurate information to screen me out of the very travel unit position. My resume clearly shows I have extensive experience, which would have qualified me for the travel desk. For the record, I remained eligible for rehire with HHSA. After I failed that test, I had asked for some time if I could reschedule that test because my mother was literally on the verge of death, unfortunately. And HHSA has a very solid policy. There are no makeups for that exam, none, no exceptions. I had to put my phone, turn it off, and place it at the front of a classroom for 4 hours and try to get through that test as quickly as I could while my mother was at a hospital. And, I was waiting any minute I could get that call from my sister or the doctors that I needed to be there for her. So I was under tremendous stress. So I rushed through a test that I normally would not have. And I only missed the test by 2 points. They were very apologetic that they couldn't accommodate me, but did offer that they would rehire me if I ever wanted to try to come back. My application with the DA's office for the admin analyst 1 position showed I had extensive experience in processing travel and expense reimbursements and budget management. Exactly the work that the travel, fiscal budget and travel unit performs. I even have proof that I process worked for that very division. And it was approved. I did it at least 28 times when I was just a mere legal support assistant 1 before I had passed my first probation with the DA's office, before I got promoted with the DA's as an LSA 2 with the DA's office. most of our departments have something called a witness claim form, where when witnesses come in they testify for preliminary exams or they come in for trials, we want to reimburse them for the mileage, or if they took an Uber, maybe they had to fly in or have hotel or something to come to attend these hearings. We want to reimburse them. And on these forms, we collect the information from them. We calculate things like their mileage from their home to the Hall of Justice. We calculate the per diem, or, how much they spent to park or whatever that may be. I actually process these. I calculated several. I have a record where I have 28 that very department, the travel unit that I was not qualified for, apparently, they approved them. I submitted them perfectly because for over 28 years of my career, all I did was financial management, calculating very difficult and complicated math problems using Excel, using calculators, using my head, scratch paper, whatever it took to get it done.
Time is up. Are you almost done?
Yeah, I have like just 1 or 2 more minutes. I can't believe that I was screened out for that. In contrast, other legal support assistants, including one of my direct teammates, were interviewed for the budget fiscal travel openings. And I was one of the few who was steered exclusively to grants and given a completely different test. This was not fair. It was not the merit-based selection required by Rule 10. The situation has been deeply disturbing and harmful to me and to my future with the DA's office. I respectfully request the opportunity to provide the Commission with additional context and proof, and I'm prepared to answer any questions you may have. I remain fully committed to my career at the DA. I love what I do and serving and helping get justice for victims, but I ask the Commission to please grant my request for a Rule 10 selection process hearing. I want to present all the facts and refute some of the false statements and maybe some confusion around my questions that I had asked when I submitted my Rule 10 form. So I believe that if I do not get this granted, I remain at the top pay step in my current classification, and I have no path for advancement on these new positions I've applied for and qualified for in the DA's office. Based on this unfounded prejudice, this DA's HR department has levied against me. And until it's corrected, I don't have any confidence whether I interview for any other position that I'm going to get a fair shot. And some of these misjudgments and misstatements are going to come up again to exclude me from being offered interviews with roles I'm clearly qualified for. Thank you.
All right, thank you. The department can respond.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Jerry Milana. I'm a Chief Deputy District Attorney.
The microphone.
You have to actually.
Yeah, I kind of have to really talk.
I will do that. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Jerry Milana. I'm a Chief Deputy District Attorney at the DA's office, and I serve as Chief of Human Resources and Special Counsel. Let me start off by first and foremost saying that the District Attorney's office very much abides by fairness and equity in the work that we do, but also in our human resources division and being fair and equitable to our employees with regard to the recruitment process. At issue in the claim today is the employee not being granted an interview in a particular unit, and that is the travel unit. And to put it in the big picture, we have a financial management division, has different units. They were recruiting for different positions, one in travel, one in grants. The employee was granted an interview in the grants position, but wasn't granted an interview in the travel unit. Both of the units had different interview panels and different panels that screened applications. In the unit that is at issue, They screened out the employee's application because in her application, she had self-disclosed that she had failed the exam at HHSA, and so then she failed probation. That was a red flag for the travel unit because, again, in the travel unit's eyes, the duties are, although they were not 100% the same at HHSA and in the travel unit, it required similar skills, including customer service and clerical information and data analysis. So that was something that was significant to the panel. But what's very important to note, in this cycle, the district attorney's office received 558 applications, including 45 in our own department, so 45 DA employees. So not everyone could be granted an interview. So the panel, of course, in the travel unit did its best to screen applications and then granted interviews to individuals who they believed best fit the position. But again, because of the self-disclosed information on the application, on the county application on failing probation, that caused the travel unit to pass on the employee's application. Again, knowing the volume that the unit had, there was no other issue. And I think the employee now is arguing that she has skills and abilities that I think would go to, if somebody's qualified, after they had interviewed. Here, we're talking about just getting granted the interview. But again, the panel screened out the application because of the failure of probation in a position that they felt had similar job duties. So as far as the district attorney's office, we would ask respectfully that the commission deny the request for a selection hearing.
May I respond to that?
Yes, briefly.
Thank you. Because again, if I took a 90-day training test and was not granted a permanent position, you had to pass a test to be granted the permanent. I didn't technically fail probation. And I may have worded that in that application, which I've changed since to say that I failed the qualifying exam to be placed in a permanent position. If I had failed that test, and I just demonstrated extensively why that test was more towards the grants unit, why would the grants unit offer me, with 500 applicants, grant the interview for me for that? When they had, here's my application, not in the interview, they had this information before. I have several pages here from my application where, as my role at the county treasurer tax collector, reconciled property tax bills, processed refunds, financial and accounting calculations, prorations, accrued interest, calculating and transferring tax payments, assessing customer needs promptly, conducted research, resolved escalated issues, worked with other departments, adhered to state and California revenue and tax codes. Then I go on, I could go to, I have 6 pages of where I have, there's no way, how do you miss? All of this highlighted is everything for the travel desk, everything that she just stated, none of it for the grants desk. And I'm a neurodiverse employee, and I don't think a 1-question email abstract, come up with how you would do office supply and hire someone, and you get time for 30 minutes. That's the question I was given. You put a neurodiverse individual like myself, since we're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, you don't include those of us who are neurodiverse. An Excel test would have been exceptional because you would have seen right then and there, boy, that girl's an ace with numbers, with calculations. She can do it. And I had to write this abstract. How do I explain? I was trying in my interview for grants to explain, like, how I'm using general ledgers and math. Like, you can't explain that as someone with my kind of brain.
Okay.
I have to do the math.
I understand. So My question is, did you get the grants job? I'm not,
No,
you didn't get that either.
no. And you know what makes me happy though? The person who did was my supervisor at the treasurer tax collector. I'm so proud of her. She's fantastic. We worked very close together. But the reason I left the treasurer tax collector was because I felt my customer service and financial skills and working with teams and supporting others was a better fit for my career. And the DA's office is the best place to work, by the way, at the county of San Diego.
Okay. Thank you.
May I have a brief minute to respond?
Sure.
What the employee was just discussing is not before the commission. Her complaint was not being granted an interview in the travel unit, but what we just heard was talking about the grants position, which is not before the commission.
Right.
I just wanted
I
to,
understand. I was just trying to get a sense of where things stood.
thank
All right.
you.
Do any of the commissioners have any questions? I just have one. If you were a hiring officer and you had 558 applications, 45 of them from the department that you're in, would you be looking for any reason to exclude somebody so that you could narrow the pile?
Certainly, after I reviewed qualifications,
Right.
if I saw that someone had as many pages of qualifications I have in financial background, I certainly would do everything I could not just to segregate them out until I looked at the rest. And I certainly wouldn't pick someone who was bagging groceries at Albertsons prior to coming to the district attorney's office over someone who had 20 years of hands-on financial experience working with these types of
I think
things.
we've heard your answer.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, now that we've heard from both parties, if there are no questions, we need to have a motion and a second and call for a vote.
Motion to adopt staff's recommendation to deny the request for selection process hearing.
A second.
Any further discussion? Will the commission secretary please record the votes?
Commissioner Bassett,
Aye.
Commissioner Coleman,
Aye.
Commissioner McGovern,
Aye.
Commissioner Montenegro.
Aye.
Hey, I'm sorry that you did not get what you wanted from this commission, but we have decided that we are not going to overturn what has occurred. The selection process seems fair to us.
That's fine. There's other remedies for me too, other routes for me to go, which they know I will pursue to get to, making sure it's a more fair and equitable interview process. So thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for your time today. Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes today's meeting. Thank you for attending. The next commission meeting is scheduled for June 3rd, 2026. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, commissioners.